Hi there. Good evening. This is The Conversation with PFlow. I would like to welcome you again to another episode of The Conversation. You know, life has a way of throwing you curveballs. You find things that happen to you during the course of life that totally throw you off course. If you're a religious person, the Bible says something about time and chance happening to people, and that which means that outcomes are not predetermined, which means that solutions may come and may not come, which means that the things that you expect to happen in a particular way may not just turn out the way you expect them to happen. And because of that, we get to situations in our lives where we are faced with all sorts of objectives, all sorts of options, and all sorts of problems that we need to solve. Now, one of the things that God has done in the way that He created us was that as human beings, we cannot live outside of a community. During the evolution phase of man, from an individual to a community, what men found out was that when they banded together as a community, they had a better chance of surviving than when you were a loner. So in the course of those evolutions of our relationships, we started to build friendships. And those friendships could determine how our lives turn out. You know, if you recall on this show, I've talked to you about how nature and nurture contribute differently to who we become and how we become. Today, I'm going to be talking to us about how to build relationships and how to ensure that the relationships we build are long-lasting. And today, I'm not going to be doing this show alone. I've actually got my friend, who I've now started to call a brother, joining us on this conversation tonight. Mr. Muyiwa Aluko. It's someone I've known now for over 11, 12 years.
Yeah.
Interestingly, he's also someone who my best friend actually went to the same secondary school with. And I think everyone should please welcome Mr. Muyiwa Aluko
Thank you very
to
much.
joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on the conversation. So today we're going to be speaking about relationships. You and I have known each other for a few years now, like I said earlier on, upwards of 10, 11 years. During that period, I think we've built what I would describe as a friendly relationship. We've gone from friends to business partners, and now to brothers, and there are certain things that I always talk about when I talk about relationships. One of them is that there is no relationships that built outside of a trusting relationship. So trust is extremely important in how we build relationships. I also talk about communication, having open communication lines, and how everyone knows what is going on in each other's lives. I would like us to start today's conversation with you talking about your own views about relationships and friendships in particular, and how those have come to shape your life.
Thank you once again. I value friendship a lot. I think that's from my upbringing. It's been where I was brought up with my family. We're all close-knit, and I understood what it is to be family orientated, and that extended to how I related with people in terms of my friends in school. So I see myself extending myself for people who give the same back in return. So that's the way I've seen it. But as time goes on, you're getting older, you find that relationships are very complex, right? The way you deal with Pastor Flo is not the same way you deal with Ozav. There are things that I would tell him, and there are things that I will not tell him. I think that's also part of relationship. You need to be able to manage information, right? It's not you don't know how the other person might take what you want to say to him. You need to manage people, no matter how close you are to them. And I think that that in itself has helped me, right, have a longer relationship with people that I call my
close friends.
Close friends.
And interesting that you speak about what I gleaned from what you said. Your relationships or your friendships must also be situational. So the fact that you're my very close friend doesn't mean that you will have all of the information that I have, because by me understanding who you are and how you react, I'm able to better ensure that the information you get is not one that is injurious to you.
Exactly.
So let me give you an interesting example. I have a paternal instinct, which is to be protective. Okay. So when my friends call me or someone calls me, the tone of your call and the way you speak to me is very, very important. So if you call me and say, oh, there's a problem, immediately my brain goes into overdrive. What could have gone wrong? What could have gone wrong? What could have gone wrong? That's how I'm thinking. But I find that people now use those phrases without any consideration. So somebody calls you, oh, there's a problem, and you're like, hold on a minute, what's going on? It's like, oh, the TV did not come on. Like, that's not a problem.
That's not a problem.
You know, so if you didn't know me, then you should understand that when you're passing information to me, you must be very conscious about the way you, and you know, this happens between both of us.
Yeah.
When you call me and say, Femi, there's a problem, I'm like, calm down. You know, calm down. You know, is there really a problem? You know, because, and of course, the way we interpret those things are usually driven by our experiences. So if you come from a closely knit family, you do and I do as well. You know, my siblings know that we care deeply about each other. So when there's a problem, we're very deliberate on how we communicate it, because you know that if my younger brother Dio calls me and says, bro, there's a problem, he knows immediately that my concern levels are going to rise. So he knows not to just come and say there's a problem. No, he's going to call and say, look, something happened yesterday. You know, that's the way he breaks down the problem, so that I'm like, okay, what's the solution? How do we solve it? You know, and thanks for that introductory you know, perspective. Second question I would then say we should talk about is more how the things that happen to us also define the way we view our friends. You know, so I would give you an example and we can start out from there. I got married pretty early. I was 26. And in fairness, my friends were not exactly excited about my choice of a spouse. But they stood by me. So I remember the conversation I had with one of my friends on the morning of the wedding, and he said to me that if you don't want to do this thing today, let's scatter it all. You know, as in, and we will go there, we'll eat the food, and everybody would go home. Shebi na house buy the food, you know, that kind of a thing. And I was like, nah, there's no need for us to do that. But when I got into that marriage and it almost very quickly went bad, I found out that my friends who stood by me were very few. The ones who could able to say that, look, Femi, don't worry, we're here for you as you go through it. And that defined the quality of our relationships thereafter. I would say yes, it did. Because I remember the guys who were there for me during the dark days. And I would never trade those guys off for anything. Have you had similar experiences, you know, in the way your friendships have evolved?
I think for me, it's always been good. But I would tell you of a time when I had a transaction that went bad. It was business, right?
Okay.
And of course, I mean, hey, you have to reach out to guys, look, I have this, and all of that. And you find that the way each person reacted to it, they reacted to it in different ways, right? And that made me see how things are in terms of how how you value our friendship, right? And that's not to say that they didn't care, but it's just the way it was handled or managed on their own part, which I didn't expect. Because you see, when I say that I'm your friend, if they put a gang to my neck, I would never ever sell you out. That's the way I value friendship. And I mean, there was sometime, I mean, this we were seated at the table, and a friend was giving a gist of another friend who apparently got another lady pregnant out of his home, and the lady had the baby, and he had to go for the naming ceremony, and of course he had to go with maybe one or two of his friends. And he approached one of his friends and said, look, this is it, you have to go with me. And the guy was like, no, how do you want your wife to if she finds out that I went there with you? The guy was like, you have to. He said, anyways, whatever it is, if you don't have a choice, because right now I'm making a demand of the friendship. That's friendship of how many years? And he said, look, I've never made a demand of our friendship. Today, I'm making that demand. And the guy had no choice but to go with him.
And he went?
Yes, and he went.
Wow. Look, I mean, for me, that is a deep test of loyalty.
Yeah.
That's a deep test of loyalty.
Yes.
And the reality is that in all our lives, we need people like that who were able to say, look, I messed up, but I need someone to show up for me. It's the experience of Jesus Christ, when he got arrested and he had those 12 guys who had said, come rain, come shine, we're going to die for you. Yeah. We're with you till the end. And when the cookie crumbled, all the Negroes took off. Yeah. Even Peter, who had said, I will die for you, there's nothing, don't speak like that. Peter was like, I don't know this bro from anywhere, man. 3 times he said it. And look, the truth is, that story is so profound because you're literally asking a friend to be part of your story, a negative part of your story. And the friend needs to make a choice and to say, am I going to let this friendship go? Or am I going to, take the flack that comes with this, and stay by them? And I'm saying this to anyone who's listening to us this evening in the sense that you need to find yourself friends who are able to stand with you in difficult times, in good or bad times. Look, I always say that there's a Yoruba saying that it is during troubled times that you know your friends, the one who sticks with you when you've messed up. I used to say something about one of my friends. You know him, Wale Shonde Skoto. Yes. and I say about Skoto that if I got into trouble, the one guy I knew that was going to be with me in that room was Skoto. And he knew the same thing about me. We're just going to be like Otishale, let's go and collect our L. And the truth is, at some point I fell out with him. And I fell out with him for about 2 years. But there was something that kept us together. And that was when we remembered the things we've been through, the things we've done together. At a point when he lost his job with the bank, and it looked like all hope was lost, and I had the opportunity to bring him into an organization where I was working. He never forgot that. And that's why, as we build friendships, it's very important that when you're building your friendships, there are things that tie you together. There must be things that bind that friendship. Sometimes it's forged in a good place. Sometimes it's forged in a bad place, in a place where errors have been committed, you've failed, miserably. Maybe it's in business, you've borrowed money, there's no way for you to pay it back, and there's a friend who's able to say, look, you should have done this better, but you know what, how big is the problem? How do we solve it? And we all need someone like that in our lives. We need someone like that in our lives. As we bring this home, the final question I wanted to ask you is, what would you say has been the most defining moment for you when it came to friendship? Where you could say, this person is my friend, and come rain, come shine, I can count on them to be loyal to me. What would that be for you? You know what happened with your friend, but what's your own story? What's your own story? I'll tell you my own story, by the way.
No, like I said, because I was going to continue with what I was saying about that time. And, at that point in time, I just needed someone to just
hold
my hand. That was honestly, that was all I just needed. Right? And it just seemed like the whole thing was just coming to me, and it was just one discussion after the other. Okay, this is what. And I said to myself, I just need someone to just hold my hand.
Give me a hug.
That's like first.
Just give me a hug.
And I mean, yeah, I mean, I got one or two people who did that, who are friends today. And by the way, I read the book of Job from the beginning to the end.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that gave me that hope to know that definitely. And, reading that, Job, his wife, his friends, they all left him. So I'm bringing this up.
Yeah, obviously.
Right. And at that point, I knew, okay, look, it's not about friends now, right? God himself.
You've got to stand up for me. You've got to show up for me.
You show up, trust in God first.
Yep.
And God will bring those friends to you. It is not you that will try and say, look, you have to come for me. You have to be there for me. So I went to God first, and God brought those friends to stand by me. It wasn't me. It wasn't them. It was God that did it.
So this is so interesting, and I hope everyone who's listening to me now understands this. The Bible is very clear. So there's a passage in the book of Psalms. It says, "When my father and my mother forsook me, then the Lord opened his arms and received me." Yeah. And the truth is that I wasn't expecting that we were going to end this conversation, on the altar of God, but it just tells you how profound this is. Yeah. Because the reality is, the Bible also says that cursed is the man who places his trust in human beings, because human beings are going to fail you. Yeah. I'm hoping that as we bring this home today, somebody out there is listening to me and saying to themselves that I'm going to forge my friendship such that the first person who is my go-to is God.
Is God, yes.
That when the times are dark, when there's no rain, when the land is parched, my first port of call is not to look for my phone and to see who should I call. My first port of call is to say, where is God?
Yes.
Where is your face? How can I find you? And the truth is that when you find God in those dark days, you actually get to trust that relationship even more. Oh, yeah. And that's why I always say in my conversations that God can be trusted. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening has been such an enlightening one for me. And we've had the privilege of having Mr. Muyiwa Aluko on this call with us today. And I've learned a few things. I like the fact that in his dark times, his circle was not in man, but was able to go to the book of Job and realize that, and there's something that I love about God when God showed up for Job in the last chapters. God didn't come into an argument with him, telling him, this is why it happened. And it was because you did not shake your head or your head was working. No. God said, hold on a minute. I'm God. I can deal with anything that I want to do. I can do whatever it is that I want to do. But when God showed up for him, it was a time of restoration. Yeah. When God was leaving, God said, look, you know what, Job, I got you. Children, here are your children back. Wealth, here's your wealth back. Your own health, here's your health back. So that means that no matter what we're going through, that God can be trusted. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. And you've just had the conversation with PFlow. Like I always say, my handles are just scrolling under the screen. Follow me, send me an email, send me a direct message on any of my social media platforms, and I'll be good to respond to you. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Bye.